guys, here today we're going to talk about the cooling system and the water pumps on the Wildcat XXs. As most of you guys know, or if you've already been one of the unfortunate guys to have an issue, the Wildcat XXs can go through water pumps. I've got some failed ones here. I'll get into it and I'll kind of show you guys what goes on, what fails, why it fails, and that there's a cheap, simple, easy fix out there. What we have in front of us here are the components for what we call our self-bleeding kit. This is where the stock bleeding part happens. And they just got a little petcock there for you to run it and to open up the petcock and let the air out. The problem is, what we found over time is that these systems are really prone to trapping air in the system over time. So this self-bleeding kit, what it allows the coolant system to do is just constantly purge and run that air out so the air goes to the tank and the coolant system and stuff stays full. What happens on these machines is when these pumps cavitate, or when there gets air in the system, the pump cavitates and then the rush of water comes back in, and this pump is spinning 5,000 to 9,000 RPM, and it goes from no load to load, and it shears itself right off. The only thing that's holding it in place is just the shaft, and there's a small little pin that runs through this shaft, and then it's molded onto the rubber. But then it plain and simple can't take the load, and then your impeller's spinning, and next thing you know, your machine's overheating and you don't know why. So on our $30,000 to $40,000 race cars that we build, we don't run the big fancy, $250 to $500 billet pumps. We're still running the stock pumps. We just run this bleeding system so that we get all the air out of there so that pump can't cavitate, and we haven't had any issues since we started running this system. Anybody who's worked on one of these, mechanics in the shop, if you guys have ever had to bleed the coolant system on these things, you know that they're notorious for trapping air, and it's really tough. This makes bleeding them out initially during engine rebuilds, freshens, preventive maintenance, things like that. It makes bleeding the coolant system much, much easier as well. So basically what we're doing is we're tying on to that stock bleeding part that we talked about with the petcock. We're getting rid of that, and we're attaching this coolant line to it. This coolant line runs all the way up into the front of the machine, up next to the coolant bottle. We put this T, this is the normal line that would come back for the overflow. We put this T in line so the air can purge or to run right into here, and then the air just dumps into the tank, and your tank can breathe the air out, the coolant stays in the system. Again, very simple. This kit retails for $59.95, and it's a much better, cheaper, easier alternative than switching out the whole pump, which can run you $250 to $500. And again, this is the same thing that we use on our real high-end race cars that we build, doing short course racing, cross-country racing, endurance racing, you name it, and we don't have any issues with it. So if you own a Wildcat XX and you've heard about the water pump issues and you're worried about it, this simple kit for $59.95 will take care of all your problems, and you won't have to worry about it ever again.